Fadal.
Where can we get the book that we're studying right now?
Question says, where can you get the book that we're studying right now? I mean, you know, any Islamic bookstore should have it. If you want somewhere, in most cases, that has it written out for sure, Dar es-Salaam, the publisher. Whether it's online, or whether it's in Brooklyn, Atlantic Avenue, you'll be able to find it easily, inshallah. I don't think there's a PDF of the book, a complete PDF. We don't want to get into the issue of, is it permissible to use PDFs that aren't sanctioned by the authors? Is it infringement upon copyrights? That's an issue in itself. Al-Muhim, the concept, if there was a PDF for the book, it was done, someone took out the time to scan it and put it for free, and the people could benefit from it without the intention of reprinting it and, you know, stealing it, perhaps it'll be okay. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Initial ZU from Birmingham, UK. How should one behave when speaking to a woman for a reason? Can you look at her face? Can you look at her in her face?
Question says, how should a person behave when speaking with a woman? Is he allowed to speak to her directly? Can he look at her face, etc.? The general rule is that you're between two principles. The first is the command to lower your gaze from a woman for whom you're not a mahram. That's a principle. It's to lower your gaze from looking at a woman for whom you aren't a mahram. And the second principle is treating people honorably. Treating people honorably and speaking to people and dealing with people with respect. Bil ma'ruf, bil husna. That's a principle that's supported by the text of Kitab and Sunnah as well. So which one of the two takes dominance? How much of this, how little of that, etc. The tweaking, you turning the knobs, 80% lowering of the gaze, 20% I made contact with her, spoke to her, so on and so forth. That's going to depend on the time, the place, and on you. The first concept is the concept of a sister that doesn't wear niqab. Many people, whether they're men and women, brothers and sisters, they think that there is a separate amount or a separate list of rulings pertaining to a woman who doesn't normally cover her face or her hands on her face when it comes to Muslims. The sister does not cover her hands and her face on the subway, driving a car, walking, eating, wherever she goes, everyone can see her face. She's beautiful, considered by the people. She isn't considered beautiful, whatever. Makeup, whatever the case may be. But everyone sees her face on a daily basis. The fajr, the pious, the wicked, etc. And then whether it's the sister herself or a brother or someone else, they think that there's a new separate rulings that she gets when there's a certain time or a certain place. Such as, an example of this is a sister teaching a class in college. Can a sister give a lecture in college? Many people that says, no, salam, astaghfirullah. How can she stand up in front of men and give a talk? And the girl goes to college, sits in college, studies in school all day without what? Her face being what? Covered. So one may ask, what's the what? What's the difference? What's the what? What's the difference? Are clearness? Or the sister doesn't wear niqab. She doesn't cover her face in front of the nasty, wicked kuffar men. She sees a Muslim man and she does what? She covers her face instantly. Or I have to go to the masjid, I have to cover my face. What's the difference? One may say, what? What is the what? What is the difference? So if there's a sister that doesn't cover her face and you look at her for the reason why you're looking at her, that's one scenario. Then you see in her face and she normally, what? Covers her face. You with me or not? The sister normally does what? Covers her face. And then you look at her in her eyes, or you ask her to take off her niqab, or look at her ID, and her face isn't what? I understand. That's a different scenario. Also, what type of person you are. Are you pious, trying to be pious, trying to be righteous, trying to do the right thing? It's one thing. You have a girlfriend, you have a boyfriend, you're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all day, all night, looking at videos, looking at women, and then you see a sister, and it's a whole new, like you said, a new set of rulings now. on which a person not only doesn't look at the sister, but he turns around and he's saying to the side, "No, sister, that way." Many people, they do this. Many people, they do this. And the shocking, crazy thing is you'll see this in college. Brother, he asked me, he says, "Can a sister give the talk during the Islamic Reminder Week or the Islamic Awareness Week in college? Because, the people are saying that it's haram for a woman to be in front of the men." As I was finishing my lecture, my Q&A session, outside of the classroom was a non-covered, non-Muslim woman. Uncovered non-Muslim woman with tight clothes and this and that, waiting to come in the room and what? Teach them. And then he asked, can a sister who's wearing a khimar, who's wearing an overgarment, to stand and give a reminder to the people? That's haram. But the kafir lady, with her natural body out, exposed, tight, perfume, that's what? Something is clearly wrong now, guys. Everybody understand? Something's clearly what? Clearly wrong. Everybody understand this? So at the end of the day, if there's a sister and there is a need for you to look at her face, in which the nature of the conversation, or buying and selling, returning something, in a courtroom, someone is emotionally distraught, counseling somebody, they're really messed up, you have to talk to them and look at them and help them out, that's one thing. And if that isn't necessary, or if that isn't the case, then perhaps it's a different story. But the fine-tuning, the do's and the don'ts, is going to be subjective to the place, to the time, and to the person. To the place, the time, and the person. And most importantly, if you look at a sister that you're talking to, or a sister looking at a man, it doesn't mean that you have to lust and gawk and stare at the person. Everybody understand this? There is a difference between the what? Between the two. So this is what I feel regarding this issue. I feel that a person has to implement all of the Islamic principles. I feel that a person has to take into consideration his time, his place, his location, and one's lifestyle. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't strive for perfection. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to be better. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to practice the sunnah and have shyness for your sins. We're not trying to say that. But it means don't go to the extreme in neglecting a cultural norm that you are far from implementing things which are far less than that. Everybody understand these words? So that's what I feel regarding this issue. Wallahu la yuhibbul fasad. Allah does not love corruption and evil and things like this. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Initials NB from Toronto, Canada. What are some of the wisdoms behind sending salam and salah on the Prophet ﷺ, since his reward does not decrease if no one was to do so?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Barakallahu feek. Ukht al-Aziza. From the wisdoms is first and foremost is to manifest our love for the Prophet ﷺ. To manifest our love for him. And to physically show and to prove how much we love him. And how fond of him we are. And to always be conscious of that love and of the status that he has over our heads. So much so is that his name is no longer a normal name. His mention is no longer a normal mention. The moment his name is mentioned, instinctively, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is from the greatest of those what? Of those wisdoms. Also, another wisdom is attempting, we said, to pay back the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Attempting to give him some of what he deserves from us. All of which he has given us and taught us. And the Prophet ﷺ said about the Jewish boy who accepted Islam when he was dying, he said, Alhamdulillah alladhi anqadhahu bi min an-nar. He says, all praises for Allah who saved this boy because of me from the fire. Who saved this boy because of me from the fire, through me. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he tells us, none of you can believe until, I'm more beloved to him than everybody. His wealth, his family, his children, his mother, his parents. وَالنَّاسِ أَجْمَعِينَ. Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar rahimahullah explains in Fath that how can one love the Prophet more than his own parents? Just stop and think about how deep this is now. You never met the Prophet ﷺ. You never saw him, not once in your lifetime. You're supposed to mystically love him more than a person who you've been with your entire life. Who fed you, who raised you, who took care of you, who made you, who gave you what he gave you or what she gave you, raised you from day one. You love this person. You look just like him. You come from the same blood. And you're supposed to love a man that you never ever met or saw once in your life. That is an extremely profound concept. And the reason behind it, Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, is because you look at the benefit that the parents give and the benefit that the Prophet ﷺ gave. The parents' benefit in most cases is just material and worldly, if that. Some parents are bad parents, or they are extremely they fall short regarding their children. The Prophet ﷺ, his benefit is the thing that saves your flesh from the burning fire. He's the thing. His benefit is the thing that has allowed you to be a Muslim, to experience Iman, and then this goes on. So attempting to pay him back by asking Allah to give him more, and to raise his status, and to elevate his status. وَهَكَذَا. These are from the wisdoms of doing that, and Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
Initials AMA from Columbia, South Carolina. Can a marriage contract be revisited or amended? If so, then how?
Question coming from Columbia, South Carolina. Let me give salams to all of the brothers and sisters in the southern states. Can a marital contract be later on adjusted? All right, revised, etc. And if so, how? It depends on what the condition is. If a woman, she said at the time of marriage, I do not accept you getting married to another woman. I don't accept you getting married to another woman. And the husband agrees. 5 years go by, regardless whether something has happened or not, whether something has changed or not, but she says, it's not a problem, you can get married again. And that was the thing that he signed and wrote down, la bas, that's fine. Or the exact opposite. Husband makes a condition upon his wife. I make a condition upon you, you cannot allow anyone in my household unless you call me and let me know beforehand. And then later on he says, you know what, I trust your judgment. I'll live with you for some years. You can allow whoever you want in my household because I know you're not going to allow anyone except that they're a good person, etc. That's fine. As far as if it's something that's pertaining to the necessity of the marriage, then that's a different story. A husband says, I don't want to have to take care of you anymore. That's from the basic rights of the husband. However, whatever the believers agree upon and is not against the kitab and the sunnah, then it's permissible. So if the sister says, well, you don't have to work as hard as you used to, or see me as many times as you used to, as long as they both agree and it's not against the sharia, then perhaps that's fine. The moment only one party agrees, the moment that it's against the sharia, then that's a whole different story. You can't get out of the contract that you signed. You signed that. No, I don't want to do that no more. I have to get a second wife now. You signed on a contract that you would not marry another woman till death do us part. And she says, I don't want a co-wife. Then perhaps the man has to what? Stick by the condition that he made. Wallahu ta'ala.
Initials LZ from Toronto, Canada. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. When it comes to assigning a wakil, can a wakil be any righteous Muslim, or does he have to be an imam from a masjid?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What we just explained in the Q&A session pertaining to marriage and polygamy is that perhaps the proper terminology is wali and not necessarily wakil, and we explained why. As far as can it be any Muslim or does it have to be an imam? Can it just be any pious Muslim? There's not a condition that it has to be an imam or a student of knowledge or a scholar or someone who's involved with the center. However, the concept of liability, something goes really wrong, really badly wrong, or yani wrong, something goes really, you say what? Something goes wrong, yani really messed up thing happens when you get married to this brother, and you need help. You need help, and you look for the wali who married you to the brother. The brother gave you this disease. He's extremely abusive. He disappeared. He stole all of your money, whatever the case may be. And you need help to contact him or to, whatever. And this pious brother that got you married and then knew the brother and hooked you up with the brother is now he changed his phone number. He changed his what? Changed his phone number. Or he doesn't live in the city anymore. Or, waliyadu billah, he may not be a Muslim anymore. Huh? Or he may go and turn to some other type of Muslim, some crazy bid'ah type of, sect or something. Flip out. It happens. And now you're stuck. Whereas the Muslim who is an imam or one who's working in a center, there's some type of liability. If let's say no more live streams, right? And I change my phone number, I change my email address. Can you still not find a way to get in contact with me, Ahmed? Through somebody, through a brother, through a sister, somebody. One way or another. One what? One way or another. If I'm ducking and hiding, it's one way or another that you can what? Find me if you really need to find me. Everybody clear on this or not? Someone who's the imam of this masjid, he doesn't work there no more. He's no longer the imam. He changed his number. He was the imam of the masjid for 10 years. You don't think people have a personal address of him? An aunt, a cousin, a brother, a this, a that, an ex-wife? There's liability. And there's safety oftentimes. Not all of the times, but what? Oftentimes. Also, last but not least, perhaps the masjid or the center, the dawah center in America, I said perhaps, or Canada or the UK, as if it's the Islamic courthouse. Even though you can't force the rule upon anyone. There is no Sharia ruling that you can implement on someone. But that's the closest thing that the Muslims can have to some type of central government. They said the closest thing. It doesn't mean that it is a government. But it's the what? The closest thing. In which there's a body of Muslims. There's economic structure. There's religious structure. There's some type of social what? Structure. You get that when you get someone who's the imam of a community. Everybody understand this? But it doesn't always mean that that's the best thing. The imam of a community may be extremely busy. Or he may be a bad wali. He doesn't know how to look for a good brother. Or he may turn away a brother because his standards are so what? So high. He rejects a brother because the brother smokes cigarettes. Because he's so pious and righteous and knowledgeable. And smoking cigarettes is an abomination. A'udhu billah, he smokes cigarettes. Me a Muslim, you want to marry his sister? No. But another brother who's a good pious Muslim, he looks at the sister, looks at the brother and says, hey, smoking cigarettes is what? Pretty normal today. Unfortunately. It's pretty what? It's normal. Doesn't smoke weed. He's not drinking. He's not doing crack or heroin or shooting up or this or that. Smoking cigarettes is a what? He may say it's a blessing. Waliyadu billah. In 2018, this is a reality. That's the only thing he has. The only problem is that he smokes a couple of cigarettes from time to time. Tell you, let him get married. That's better than what? Other drugs, let alone the sister who can't get married at all. So the wali has to have fiqh. Now, you may say, this is a crazy thing you just said, telling someone to marry someone who smokes cigarettes. A'udhu billah, so on and so forth. One day in the Prophet's masjid, they asked Sheikh Abdul Muhsin Abad, our Sheikh, about a sister who's older. She's not, really, really old, but she's older than the prime age of marriage. Between 18, 25, whatever, overseas. So she's a bit older. People have come to her seeking her hand in marriage, and for one reason or another, it didn't work out. The father was pig-headed, was tribal, whatever the case may be. She couldn't get married. And it happens often in America and the UK and Canada as well. So they asked the Sheikh the question about a man who wants to marry her who's a good brother, but he says, Yashrab al-Dukhan. He smokes cigarettes. And perhaps this is a good match for her. He's a good brother. In this situation, in this instance, what? Marry her off. So there's some walis who don't have that fiqh. And they may have standards that are too, what? High. And he may look at and judge the people based off of himself. I don't do this. I don't watch this. I don't have this account. So anyone else who has it is a fasiq. And a normal brother who's pious, he may say, yo, that's what? That's normal. Everybody has this account. Everyone watches this. Everyone has Netflix. Everyone has such and such. Everybody understand this? So you have to have a proper fiqh. You have to have a proper what? A proper fiqh. So there's pros and there's cons between someone who's an imam and someone who isn't an imam. Someone who's knowledgeable and righteous and someone who's just righteous without that much knowledge. Huh? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. I hope that this is clear, inshallah. Last question tonight, Ahmed.
I was discussing with some Muslim. So he told we were just like the applicability of Islam in all time and places. So he told me since like the punishment for like gays would be the death penalty, and he said if you can't apply that in America, how can one say that Islam is applicable at all times and places?
Question says, regarding Islam being applicable for all times and places, and how someone can say Islam isn't applicable for all times and places for certain things such as the punishment. Brother Ahmed says the punishment for gays being the death penalty. You can't do that in America, so on and so forth. We say, just like we just mentioned, is that you have to have the proper fiqh. Just because one thing cannot be implemented from these teachings of Islam does not mean that Islam is now unapplicable in a society or time or place. It doesn't mean that. Everybody understand this? Just because one thing can't be done doesn't mean that it's what? Totally all around the board, unapplicable or inapplicable. Everybody understand this? That's first. Secondly is the concept of the people, the only thing that they think about when they think about Islam or the Sharia is a punishment. A punishment. That's it. Whether it's the Muslims or the non-Muslims, Sharia law. The first thing you think about is cutting the hand off of a thief, whipping a fornicator, flogging a drunkard, tossing a sodomite off of the top or the highest building, etc. And that's not the only thing that's from the Sharia. The Sharia has many other things, many other practices, many other virtues. So we have to get out of that mindset. Sharia, violence. Sharia, blood spilling. Sharia, burning someone alive. Nah. The Sharia is a broad concept of life. Everybody understand this? Also, the Muslims aren't perfect. In the lands of the Muslims, in the lands in which the Sharia, Allahu Alam, what lands they are, where they are, little or lot, in which the Sharia is practiced, they aren't perfect. The time of the Prophet, no one is going to differ that there was the Sharia. Nah? There were the woman who fornicated. There was the man who drank alcohol. There was the thief. The Prophet, he says, indeed, one of you is telling a lie. فَهَلْ مِنْكُمَا تَائِبٌ? He says, will one of you make tawbah? One man accuses his wife of this. Someone is what? Lying. Someone is what? They're lying. Everybody, they're what? And that was in the time of who? The Prophet. So just because this Sharia doesn't mean it's a perfect utopia. Everybody understand this? And this is all from the brainwashing of the propaganda of the media. That Sharia automatically means violence, number one. And number two, the Sharia means utter perfection. And then Muslims who wish to have the Sharia, they look for utter perfection. That is not true. Whether it comes from total kuffar or ignorant Muslims or people that are munafiqeen, in the ranks of the Muslims, talking about Islam. It could be a speaker or a lecturer or a scholar or a da'iyah who isn't a Muslim. And he poses to be a Muslim to destroy Islam from within. Waliyadu billah. So that's we have to understand. Everybody understand this? Last but not least is the concept of the ruling of Allah not changing. Anyone who does this crime, that's Allah's ruling. The application of it may differ from time to time, place to place. It may be a place in the lands of the Muslims where the Sharia is practiced and the thief's hand isn't cut off because he didn't steal a certain amount or from a certain place, min hirs, or he was mad, or he was famine, it was a necessity, wahakadha. So that's false and that's futile. But the general concept of Islam, its creed, its manners, is applicable for every time and place on a large or small scale. Last but not least is the difference between Islam and a state and Islam as a citizen of minority. There's a world of difference between the two. A world of a difference between the two. Muslims who are minorities, they don't always have the same rules as Muslims who are majorities. Based off of the text of the Kitab and the Sunnah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.